Hi, and welcome to a new episode of O CyCy, brought to you from the heart of the Lower East Side, where I sit down with cool people from the neighborhood that do interesting stuff. We talk about their world, their expertise, their insights. We talk about current affairs, basically what's hot and happening in New York City. And today I have someone very close from the neighborhood because he actually just moved with his agency production company into the building, into the bottom floor. And I know him a little bit because we've spoken to each other a bit on the street, but today we're going to get to know him better. Noah, so good to have you.
Thank you for having me, brother. Happy to be here.
Why Hester Street?
That's a great question. I live about 9 blocks north of here.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So I live in the neighborhood, and then I have a studio on Grand and Forsyth. I was working out of the studio for about a year, and the production company was growing, and I really had these big aspirations to have a physical space that was more forward-facing, like a bit more into the world. My studio's on the second floor back of the building. It's beautiful to make work. It's beautiful to lock in. Obviously the area is incredible, but I really wanted something that was more of like a physical manifestation of my community, my people.
Yeah.
And so about 7 or 8 months ago, I started looking for a second space, or I guess rather a third space. And I probably went through like 20 different spots on the Lower East Side, submitted applications to a couple places, and nothing really panned out. And then I literally was just for a walk. I kind of had given up on finding a space, and I went for a walk and I saw the sign outside, and I just literally called right away and was like, I gotta.
You need this. Because before it was the Cat Cafe. Had you ever been there?
I walked by a number of times. I'm in Dimes all the time.
Yeah.
I'm working in the neighborhood all the time. 90% of my friends live Lower East Side, Chinatown, Nolita. So it was like my whole life kind of consisted in like 7 square blocks. And I guess work-life balance for me is not really a thing.
It all morphs together.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I work with my friends.
Yeah.
I work for my friends. My friends work for me. Like we all kind of do it together, and I kind of work every day. I love going to work. And so the whole idea of having like a work-life balance separation from the office didn't really appeal to me. I live in downtown New York, and I love to be out of my house. So having another place to go is immaculate for sure.
It's so good, right? And what are your first thoughts about the street? Because you've been here in the summer, like 2 months now.
I'd spent a lot of time in Dimes, but I hadn't really spent that much time on Hester Street.
No.
And I think that's the thing about this neighborhood is there's these little, I think it's the thing about New York in general, but there's these little pockets that you don't really know exist until you get there.
Until you're in it, yeah.
And I think for me, finding a space that is in the heart of everything going on, but it's a little bit quieter. Yeah. It's a little bit off the beaten path, but not really. Yeah. Like it's right here, but for some reason we don't get the same kind of attraction.
Yeah, I can tell you why. Do you know why?
I don't know why.
So it's because we have a school in this street.
Right.
And because there's a school, they're not allowed to have hard liquor licenses. So for that reason, everything is a bit civilized always. That's why this street is so amazing, because you're only 1 block from the iconic
Canal Street.
Yeah, Dimes Square.
It's true. It is. Yeah, no, it's funny because I guess that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But I kind of love that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's perfect.
I get everything that I need within an arm's reach, but I kind of get to, have this a bit more peaceful version.
But then your house is going to be on Division. Like, is it going to be in the street of Kiki's and everything?
No, it's East Broadway, farther past
Amazing.
Casino. Yeah.
Because that would be intense to live in that street.
I think I honestly it would be fine. I think.
Yeah.
I honestly, I know people hate it and they'll call me a transplant. It's whatever, but I really enjoy the camaraderie and the community that exists within downtown Manhattan and has forever. Yeah. I wanted to live in New York since I was 9 years old, 10 years old. And every book I read, every movie I watched was like so New York centered.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I just wanted to be here my whole life. And
where did that fascination come from?
I mean, I grew up in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I grew up about an hour north of Chicago.
Okay.
About 30 minutes south of Madison. So I spent a lot of time in cities, and I was just always drawn to the energy, the people, the architecture, landscape. I just like wanted to be where there were things happening.
Yeah, where it happens.
And, I didn't really know that was art specific at the time. I just knew that there was like something buzzing. And I, obviously when you grow up in the Midwest, you kind of go to your your coasts for culture. Like you go to LA, you go to New York, and you're like, that's where the best literature is. That's where the best music is. And I'm not necessarily a beach guy.
No.
No, I mean, I love going to the beach, but I
Yeah.
after 4 days, I'm like, what else do you do? Yeah. You kind of go to the beach. It's like it.
Saying you hate LA.
I don't hate LA. I think LA would probably be the perfect place to go for a job.
Yeah. Yeah. Or retire. But not yet.
I don't even think I could retire in LA.
No. I moved there during the pandemic for a half year.
You did?
Yeah. I was maybe
You kept
going to
the
try it
apartment in New
there.
York, though?
I did because I was like, maybe I'm going to come back. And I was there and I'm like, it just felt like it was kind of like retirement. I was just like, I'm not ready for this.
I think what it is for me is like the lack of accessibility.
Yeah.
Like kind of exactly what I'm talking about with, you know, and again, I don't like to call it a scene. And I know that the scene of Dime Square is over technically or whatever, but
is it over?
I don't think so because
Who says that?
people who've lived in Dime Square and then moved away, maybe.
Oh, really?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm a raging optimist.
Yeah.
I'm an incredibly positive person. And I think that sometimes, you know, downtown Manhattan for all of its glory can be a little negative and pessimistic. And I love to look at the beautiful parts of it.
Yeah.
And I think that what you don't get in LA is the ability to run into somebody for a coffee.
Yeah.
You don't get the ability to be like, oh, I'm on my way to somewhere. Oh, I'm going that way too. Do you mind if I walk with you? Catch a deal, catch a meeting, you know, end up making a music video with that artist that you ran it. Like the way that things come to be in New York because of accessibility is something I don't think you can really get anywhere else.
No.
I mean, I haven't spent like a drastic amount of time in LA, but I know that it doesn't exist in that way.
Yeah. No, and it exists here. It's so true. Because I'm a bad planner. I love just walking outside, not knowing what I'm going to do. Right. And then you bump into people.
And the conversations that come from that too, I think is like what you can achieve in 5 minutes in New York, something that would take you hours or days and in a place that's less accessible. I mean, it's like, I sometimes joke with my friends back home, you know, who have zero interest in living in New York. And I always find that funny because I think when I was younger, I was like, New York is the epitome of what everybody's chasing. Mm-hmm. And I started to realize like my friends from Wisconsin don't want to live in New York. Like
really?
Yeah. Like they're perfectly content living where they live.
Yeah.
Like New York sounds treacherous to them.
Yeah. It's kind of like in the end of The Devil Wears Prada. She's like, everyone wants what we have. Meryl
And it's
Streep
like,
says
but maybe not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was such a great lesson for me to realize that like, yes, New York was my path and it's amazing and it is exciting and it has all those things, but like, it's not everybody's thing.
No.
But when I talk to people, I think it's funny because they're always like, how do you pay those prices for that space and this, that, and the third? It's like the intangible thing about New York is like the accessibility of what you get.
Yeah, that's it.
I can have a sandwich, any kind of sandwich at any hour of the day.
Yeah.
Anytime I want.
Yeah.
I can go get a coffee at midnight.
Yeah.
I can stay out late. I can go to bed early. I can build a life and literally curate it to the T of what I want because it's all here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the accessibility of even like public transport. I know our public transport isn't great, but in comparison to the rest of the world, it's amazing.
Everybody always complains about it. I think it's great.
I think I do too. I'm saying like,
and it's like, and they're like, the subways are delayed, but aren't like, I just go and then within 7 minutes, there always will be a subway. I never look at the schedule.
and I never even have to like I don't have to drive a car.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love not driving a car.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to sit in traffic. I want to feel like I'm going forward motion.
Yeah.
You know,
And you do.
and I think that's the thing too about being here. I love Brooklyn. I'd never live there. It doesn't cater to me, I think, in the same way. I think people know almost instantaneously, like, oh, I really love the quiet and the hush that I feel when I get across the river. I'm like, I didn't move here for the quiet and the hush.
That's amazing.
I wanted to be in the thick of it. You know what I mean?
That's amazing that you say that, because I've always said from the beginning, I'm like, I moved to New York to live in the iconic New York City. Like, I rather live in a shoebox in Manhattan than anywhere else.
And I want that visceral experience when I walk outside of my door.
Yeah.
Like I don't want, like that's the big thing that everyone said, but like the space and it's quiet and I'm like, I moved from the Midwest. I didn't move to New York
Yeah.
expecting space and quiet. I moved to New York expecting loud and obnoxious and in your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you got it right here.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, okay. And I want to talk about the neighborhood and what you're doing in the space after, but I first would like to hear, did you like study art or what's your background?
I did not study art. I grew up with I'm the youngest of 6 kids.
Oh, 6. Wow.
Yeah. So I have 5 older brothers and sisters. And it's funny because I think the older I get, I start to realize that I'm kind of just a piece of each one of my siblings.
Oh, cool.
You know what I mean? Like my oldest sister is, you know, a real writer and literature head. And I think I really gravitate towards like coffee and like a notebook and a journal with
Because
her.
you came here with your own coffee.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. I think it's just like the more that I grow up, the more I realize like, oh, like my sibling really fucked with that band and I really fuck with that band and I don't really know why, but it's kind of ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was a pretty creative household, but you know, you grow up in Wisconsin. It's not like you can even think that a creative household is going to lead to, you know, something of substance really.
Yeah.
But I had 2 very encouraging parents. Sports were a very big part of my life. So I was obviously investing a lot in like football, basketball, and baseball. And I went to college to play baseball. And I played shortstop at the University of Minnesota. So I went to a huge sports school, very like college. Like it was, you know, 60,000 undergraduates, just a massive Big Ten school. And I studied business there. And art was kind of this thing that was like always regurgitating. It was like, you know, I grew up playing the piano in my living room. And
oh, wow.
I grew up, you know, writing songs and writing little short stories. And I was always creative by nature, but it was always kind of this thing. It was like, well, I'm going to play baseball and then I'll be the guy who can like write some songs and like maybe perform at the talent show or like sing the national anthem or whatever. And I just think like it was really when it happened was my freshman year of college. I tore my hip labrum.
Oh shit! Playing baseball
2 weeks before opening day, and I had to miss my entirety of my freshman year of college, of my freshman year of baseball. And so my team was traveling to all these different beautiful cities playing the whole time, and I'm sitting in my dorm room in the middle of February in Minneapolis, and it's negative 30 degrees. Oh. It's dark at 4 p.m.
So depressing.
I can't even walk. And so I think that moment is when I really had to realize that like baseball's amazing and I'm going to take it as far as it's going to take me, but like I got to have other things that I love, that I'm really passionate about. And so I really dove into music and writing. And I think, you know, I spent that isolated period because I think every creative and artist needs that isolation period where it's like, I don't know shit about music production, but I'm going to fucking hunker down and like learn everything there is to know about Logic, learn everything there is to know about like songwriting. I didn't study music, so I don't have music theory in my background, but you know, a piece of advice that I got was like, whatever you lack for in technicality, make up for in taste.
Okay. That makes sense.
This was this idea was like, okay, I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to music school. I didn't go to art school, but I do know what I like. And I think I know what I like fast. Yeah. And so,
but do people like what you like?
I don't know, you know, how to quantify it per se. I heard an interview with Tom Ford where he said he was blessed with commercial taste.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, you know, lift that and say that that's me, but I do think that I have a really good connection to people. Mm-hmm. And so I think that things that I like, I have a really easy way of getting excited about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, getting excited about something makes people want to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And
be part of it. Yeah.
And to be a part of it and discover like, well, what does that even really look like? And so I think as I've gotten into making more art and releasing more art into the world, you do start to understand like, well, what do people gravitate towards?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think a lot of people hate commercial work and only want to, you know, prioritize personal work. Yeah. But it's like my personal work, my commercial work, it's all together.
Yeah.
I think myself as an artist, I'm never going to be the best director. I'm never going to be the best musician. I'm never going to be the best writer. But what I think I am is like, I just want to build the biggest archive that I possibly can.
Amazing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not about one specific project. It's about the culmination of who I am as an artist. That is most interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you say, because at the beginning, I'm pretty good at translating like a vision or knowing what it has to be into a cool video or like project, right? But then at some point it was like I was doing a lot of fashion stuff, but it's not like I've had a passion for fashion. Like if I compare with my friends, they know everything about the newest collections and everything. So then actually it was kind of like, okay, but who am I as an artist? You know, that's what I'm trying to actually also figure out. Like, so that's why I asked it, because I also find my taste is quite commercial then.
Well, it's interesting as well, because I think also growing up not being an artist, right? Like I grew up next to kids who were like really classically trained vocalists or like really into painting or drawing. I didn't really like have those skills per se. I wasn't really like investing in myself as an artist that way. I just was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, that chorus to that song, or like this idea of like a short story to write, like feels cool.
Yeah.
And I think like growing up, and honestly, it's, I look back on this all the time, but I'm so blessed to have not grown up in like a major market city. Cause I think honestly, the confidence that I'm able to bring now and like the sheer like ignorance is bliss, if you will.
Yeah.
About like why I even think I can make art.
Yeah.
Like if I had grown up in New York, my talent level or like my ability, I would have just been next to Steven Spielberg's kids, or like, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have ever felt like I was doing anything good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But when I was writing songs in the 8th grade, like there's no other kids in Wisconsin really like writing, at least not in my group of people that were like writing songs. So I had this kind of thing where it was like, you couldn't really call it good or bad. It just, I was writing songs.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was only gravitating to what felt cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now that I've gotten older and I do have the industry experience and I am surrounded by people who are leaps and bounds more talented than I am, I'm kind of in a place where I'm like, okay, I can call that cool. I can call that corny. I can call that commercial. I can call that e-com or whatever it is. And I'm able to kind of navigate those spaces without having to like throw myself as like just a commercial artist or just as a, you know, whatever.
But do you ever have that you want to make something, but you're like, okay, but I think other people will find this cheesy or uncool, but I think it's cool, so I'm going to do it anyway?
All the time. I think like, and you know what I think is the bigger thing is like, what is going to make my life more comfortable? Because I have really big aspirations and things I want to do. Like I mean, you know, we'll get into it, but with Priv'y and like the things that I want to do, like if a commercial job can pay the bills for the rent downstairs for a month, I got to do it.
Of course you're going to do it.
And I don't feel compromised at all by doing it.
No.
A lot of people like really, it like irks them to do it.
Yeah. And they say like, oh, you sold yourself out, but it's like, no,
and I don't even think there's a, like, I don't even think that there is selling out anymore.
No.
Like, I don't even think it exists.
I agree.
Because I think there's like this level of how can you paint with no paint?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Wait, I don't
like you can't be a painter without the money to buy the paint.
Oh, totally.
Like you need something to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, all these things that you want to be a purist, you want to be this guy who like, I live with no money and all these things. And I'm like, I'm not saying that there hasn't been times where I've struggled. I mean, you know, getting a studio and getting a gallery is definitely not great on the bank account all the time.
No.
But I know what I'm investing in.
Yeah.
And I'm so willing to take on jobs that are going to be able to pay those bills.
Of course.
And I think that that's where the separation needs to come into play, at least for me, where it's like, it's all a part of the artistry.
Yeah, and I find it also cool to work then, even if you do like a big commercial job, to work with talented people and to be part of a big brand to do it and to jump into different worlds.
And the thing is once you start working with these people, you start to realize like why Dolce & Gabbana is Dolce & Gabbana.
Yeah.
Like there's a real standard that's set in these places where it's like, yes, it's creative. Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's tasteful. But guess what it also is? Super fucking professional and like really, really, really well done.
Yeah.
And so what I started to realize, I'm like, if I can do things really, really well, that's a great art practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then doing 2 of those jobs can pay for me to go do any amount of the passion projects that I want to do.
Yeah.
And so, I think that those are things like, because I feel so blessed to be an artist in general, because I feel so blessed to like be able to like literally live off of creative works, it all feels awesome.
Kind of amazing,
It
right?
all feels amazing.
And it's like you never have to work.
Like if you would have told 17-year-old me, who's like just going to college to play baseball and like study business, and like the best thing that I thought I was going to do creatively was like work at a marketing agency.
Yeah.
If you would have told me that I was going to like own a gallery at 24 and like be able to make work and like live in New York,
Yeah.
I would have been like, yo, the sickest thing ever.
Yeah.
Regardless if that means it's a sunglass commercial or a narrative short film. It's like,
Who
it's
cares?
all amazing.
Yeah. Living the dream.
100%.
But that's so awesome because you studied business,
Yeah.
and just like me, I studied law, and then after like fell into this. But how did that start with you? Like, how did it spark?
Well, I guess I'd always had an entrepreneurial like mind.
Yeah.
I started my first business when I was like 18.
Wow.
And it's funny because this business that I started at 18 is basically what my business is now. But at 18, I had no industry experience and no idea what I was actually building. I just was doing it because I was like, this needs to exist.
Yeah.
And so I was always entrepreneurial. I was always like having passion and like.
What was that company?
It was called the Community of Creators.
Okay.
And what it's now called is Priv'y.
Okay, that was the start of your
So the
production
Community
company.
of Creators, I started in 2018, my freshman year of college. Essentially what it was this creative networking platform. I was building a TikTok, I was building an Instagram. I was really doing podcasts on Instagram Live before podcasts were video, really.
Wow.
They were mostly just audio in like 2018. But it was interesting because I would cold DM these people on Instagram from the community account. And I would ask them if they wanted to do Instagram Live on like Monday nights. And we'd log in at 7 p.m. and I'd have this whole list of shows and we'd be on Instagram Live and people would tune in. And it was this really cool thing. And then I'd post it afterwards.
Yeah.
I was also doing these creative networking events and I was hosting these events with like 50 creatives, with like 10 different mediums in like 6 different countries.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I was also simultaneously building like this app that was kind of going to, combine like LinkedIn with Discord, but in like a job posting community-based thing.
That's cool.
And I got all the way up to pitching it for investment seed rounding. And I actually got this incredible piece of advice, which was he got all the way through my pitch. He's like, this is so interesting. Like, I really think that there's like space for it. But he's like, let me ask you a super frank question. He's like, do you think you could keep 10,000 users on your platform as opposed to Instagram or Twitter? And this is pre-TikTok. So there's no short form media that was existing in that way, and apps were kind of dying. And he was like, "Do you think that you could keep that many users on your platform?" And I was like, "No." And basically, what he said was, "Okay, so I'm gonna give you the best piece of advice you've ever had." He said to me, "He's like, build the community first, and then you will have everything you want after that." And what he meant by that was like, once the community's in place, you want to develop an app. Guess what? You have 100,000 people that are going to download that app the first day that it comes out.
Wow. Just because they trust you and they know you.
They know you.
Yeah.
And you have the relationships and you have the people and they're going to tell their friends and there's rapport there. You build a community, you sell 50,000 hoodies. You know what I mean? Like really, once you have the infrastructure of the actual community in place, there's really nowhere you can't go. And so since 2018, it's 2024 now, I've just been community building.
Wow. So how do you do that? How do you build a community?
The community was this like really loose idea. I didn't know what a production company was. I didn't know what an agency was. I didn't know you could sign talent. I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like I just thought that those things existed and maybe I could find a way to like get people jobs or something.
Yeah.
And so community building at first, looked like cold DMing people on social. It looked like commenting on people's TikToks. It looked like hosting these Zoom events.
Yeah.
Because it was like a way for me to at least get in front of people and to talk to people and people to hear my vision and share things, right? And I think I did that for a number of years, but my creative practice was still quite isolated. It was still quite by myself. I wasn't collaborating with people. I wasn't writing songs with people. I wasn't really making anything with anybody else. I was only just like community building over here, making art over here. Then I moved upstate for a summer.
Okay.
I was playing baseball upstate, living with a host family. Shout out Socrates. So fun.
Socrates. I've been there
you've
before.
dude.
Yeah.
Best summer of my life.
Oh, yeah?
Probably. I mean, it's like you're living with like, I was living with the host family, but there's like 30 other dudes from like a bunch of different schools around the country who are playing baseball. And like, this was the best place you could go play summer ball. You like only played 5 days a week. Every other summer ball program, you played 7 days a week. It was like, only played 5 days a week. I was an hour north of the city, basically.
Wow.
So I'd take the train in from Poughkeepsie. I would take it into Penn Station. And I would take the 6 a.m. train in, and then I'd take the 8 p.m. train back.
Wow.
So I'd go spend 2 days a week in New York, and I would just cold DM people.
Wow.
Do you want to get a coffee? Do you want to go for a photo walk? Do you want to, whatever it was. And I started to realize that like more people were open to getting together than I thought would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you send a DM and you're like, nobody's going to answer this.
No.
And you start to realize like people want to like
collaborate.
They want to meet more people that are creative. They want to like feel like they're not crazy for being an artist also. And so
hence I was so happy that you moved into the building.
I know. I'm honestly so stoked. But so living upstate, like I would take the train in, and I met this guy. His name's Dana.
Okay.
Literal legend. He owns a production company and he produces mostly commercials, but he was this access point for me. I didn't know what a production company was. I didn't know what a producer did. I didn't really know any of that stuff. And we sat down one time at my host family's house because he was best friends with my host mom, which is super ironic and funny. And it's funny how life works like that.
And you met him, what, online?
I met him. He came to my host brother's graduation party because he lives in the city. He lives in Battery Park, and he came up for my host brother's graduation party. And we just got to talk for like 3 hours. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I just started telling him, I was like, I have visions to do this, I have visions to do that. And he's basically like, you want to be a director then? And I was like, well, no, I didn't go to film school. I don't know how to fucking hold a camera.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do anything. I
No.
genuinely didn't. He's like, that's what you got a cinematographer for. That's what you got an editor for. That's what you got a gaffer for.
Yeah.
And I like, it was, I swear to God, it was like, oh my God, I can do it. As soon as somebody gave me the ability to like, you can do that.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. So then I went back to Minnesota for my senior year, and I made up my mind that day I'm moving to New York.
Wow.
As soon as I graduate. I was
That's
like, as soon as I
amazing.
graduate, I'm moving to New York. I gave up my baseball aspirations pretty much. I mean, I had a fun senior year. I played a little bit, did okay. I had a good time with my teammates, had a blast, but I was like, I'm moving to New York and I'm going to be an artist.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a director. Like that was like, I as soon as he said, I was like, yep, okay, that's me.
Oh.
And
Did you get support from your business friends?
No, not really. But not in like a non-supportive way either. It was kind of just like, do you really think you're going to build anything?
Same when I moved.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you're going to move to New York and you're going to like work for a production company.
Yeah.
Well, and that was also this thing. It was like, Dana's like, hey, when you move to New York, let me know. I'll get you started in production. And I remember moving here July 1 of 2022. And he's like, I'm living in Hell's Kitchen at the time. I'm on
That's where I started too.
No way.
Yeah, 49 between 8 and 9.
West 51st and 9th.
Oh my God.
9th Avenue.
That's
Let's go.
crazy.
And so I moved here. I was in 1 month. Well, at the time I thought it was a 2 month sublet, but it was a 1 month sublet in Hell's Kitchen. I had like $1,000 in my bank account, no job. And I text Dana July 1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm here. And I assumed production companies worked every day all the time.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of like 9 to 5-y.
Yeah.
It's not.
Like-
And so he's like, that's so great. I'm on vacation until September. And I was like,
oh.
Ooh. So I had like 2 months.
Yeah.
Until like even like a potential job. And so I remember I like shipped around the corner and like went into a cafe and I was like, are you guys hiring? I had cafe experience from college. And he's like, it's New York. We're always hiring.
Yeah.
So I got a job at the cafe.
Amazing.
It was in the Garment District. And it was right next door to the William Esper acting school. It's so funny how these things work because that acting school navigated my next 2 years in ways I'd never thought it would.
Really?
I directed an off-Broadway play for 10 nights with 5 actors who went there.
Wow. And you would have never thought
I would
that.
have never even met them. The only reason that I got to direct that off-Broadway play is because they knew me. You know what I mean? And I did a short film with 2 of the actors. It's just like, God puts you in places that you don't expect to be because you're meant to be there. And then you go there and you just kind of have to act on it.
Yeah.
And so I think when you asked about the business friends, it was kind of like, I just knew if I got to New York, everything would work. Whatever work meant, whatever make it means, I just knew New York was the place I had to be.
Yeah.
The people that I needed to meet were there. The job I had, what I mean? It's like it all happened. So I guess in a long-winded thought, I spent 4 months at the cafe. got to leave because freelance life was picking up.
That's such a good inspiration too for people that feel stuck. Yeah, then if you take a different job, it could lead you into different streets.
And I had no qualms getting a job in service.
No.
I was stoked to be in New York.
Yeah.
I literally didn't care.
No.
I was like, I'll live out of a fucking shoe case.
Yeah.
Or suitcase.
And shoe case could be
Shoe
too.
case as well. You know what I mean? Like I'll live in a shoebox.
Yeah.
You know, for $800 wherever I gotta go. If it means that I get to be in New York, I'll work service. I'll work 10 days. Like I don't care. Being able to be in that place and to like also get so acclimated to New York. When you were in the garment district, you're handling like real New Yorkers every single day, and you're handling them before they've had their coffee, right? Like I'm working 6 a.m. shifts in Midtown. 37th in fashion.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant place to be at 7 in the morning.
No, and everybody's in a hurry.
Nobody wants to wait for their coffee. Everybody, like I remember these 3 guys used to walk in from the WeWork around like 10:30 a.m. every day, and they would expect their espressos to be on the counter before they literally paid.
Oh my God.
And it's like, those are just the things you'd get used to.
Yeah.
And I kind of loved it.
Yeah.
Like I loved like kind of dance that was.
Yeah.
And I was strategic. You know what I mean? It was like I would make a production connection. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I guess this is a podcast, so it's okay to talk a lot.
Different questions. Yeah.
But I think the thing that got me to the business, though, I think it's like I kind of put community on the back burner when I moved to New York, because I was like, I need to go get industry experience. I need to go meet people. I need to go like actually build that community. I threw the app on the back burner. I threw the community on the back burner. I kind of stopped posting on IG. I kind of stopped posting on TikTok, and was like, I'm going to develop relationships with people who are actually doing really good shit. And so
your community was creative people that are working in the industry. Didn't matter. Could be a painter, could be a flute player, could be a director.
I was interviewing people who were studio painters. I was interviewing people who were photographers. I was interviewing people who were film photographers. Everybody, you know, musicians. And what was beautiful about that is I started to learn that I could really speak all of their languages, right? Like, I think the thing that I was encouraged to do a lot when I was younger was like specialize. If you can get really, really good at this one thing, maybe you'll be successful in something. I just never felt good, right? Like I'm like, I fucking love to make music. I love to write. I love to do all these things. Why would I specialize?
Yeah.
Why can't I do all of them? But when I was doing all those different things, I started to realize that like, oh, I can go in a room with a finance guy and talk business.
Yeah.
I can go into a room with a painter and talk about process. You know what I mean? Like these are just things that I have natural inclinations of conversation and connecting to people.
Yeah.
And so that's been the number one MO of my business is like, who do I know?
Yeah.
Right? Because the more I started working in freelance and the more that started to pick up for me, I started to get clients reaching out going, well, thank you so much for this video. Do you know anybody who could like style? Mm-hmm. Do you know anybody who can shoot still images? Do you know, right? Like all of these things started to like circulate through me. And I was like, how do I monetize that?
Yeah.
Right? Well, you start a production company, you start an agency, you start to realize that like you yourself could double your rate by having a production fee.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like there were just all these ways. And I think the thing that I learned when I moved to New York was there's so many talented people. So many don't know how to turn a buck.
Yeah. Because you can be an artist, but you also have to know how to.
Well, we have the poorest artist friends around. You know what I mean? Like people who literally don't know how to make it. And again, way more talented than me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I get a job and I'm like, how do I 360 this?
Yeah.
And so that they come back to me every single time. How do I make sure that this client tells their friend about, you know what I mean? It's like, I guess that's the business savvy mind in me.
Right.
Which is like, how do I turn this into something that's going to like allow me to do more of it?
That's amazing. Inspiring for people to hear. Yeah. I think it's cool to talk about this neighborhood.
I think for me, moving downtown was kind of like the only choice, like especially for a physical space.
No Hell's Kitchen?
No, I mean, honestly, I have nothing but good things to say about my time in Hell's Kitchen.
I love it too.
I had a great time.
Close to the park.
9 blocks from the park. I could get down the west side in 15 minutes. Great.
Yeah. I like the neighborhoodiness of.
That's what I'm saying. Like the connectivity, especially of creative people here, is something that does feel buzzy.
Like it's popping.
Still.
Like 2 years ago, I mean.
And the thing is like, and that's the thing that I think we all just have to be okay with. Is that, yes, there will be new people.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be people who move from different places and they're going to bring their own thing. And, you know, I got to shout out a good friend of mine, Matt Weinberger, because he had his debut solo show at the Sitting Room Gallery called New York Is. And Matt is really interesting because Matt grew up here.
Yeah.
He's a photographer. And he went to college somewhere else. He moved back to New York at like the heart of when Dime Square and COVID were like happening.
Yeah.
And he was documenting all of it. And Matt has this really interesting take on transplants versus native New Yorkers, where he's like, there is a dance to be played because I'm coming in with all this fucking energy, all this optimism, all this what if.
Yeah.
And the native New Yorkers, I don't want to say this in a shitty way, but they can learn something from like being optimistic again, or wanting to do something for, I don't want to say the culture, but like wanting to contribute. And I think that Matt has this same thing that he says. He's like, if you think New York is dead, and I'll use this in this sense, if you think Dime Square is dead or Lower East Side or whatever, you're just probably not participating.
Totally. That's it. Yeah.
Right? Like it's participation. It's sure the club you loved, I'm sure it closed, or it's corny now. It's TikTok ran.
Yeah.
Find a new club.
Yeah. No, and they're there.
They're there.
Totally. For that reason, I invited someone who actually works at Dimes, Mark Andrea, and he was in 2 episodes before this, because I interview a lot of people and they talk about when they moved to New York and that it was difficult. I'm like, he has been here less than a year. He is that person. And he said that often he's looked down upon because he just moved here. Mm-hmm. But I found that so crazy because new fresh blood gives that inspiration. You're like,
and you know what? I actually, being here in this neighborhood continually pushes me to like talk to strangers and to like have a conversation outside of Dimes for coffee.
Yeah.
Or to like ask people what they do and what they're interested in. A good story is like, I was at Sunday to Sunday on Orchard in Broome. And I had just gotten a call from my good friend who's a DP that I work with all the time. And he's like, he sent me a treatment, sent me a script. He's like, I need an actress. I'd go into Sunday to Sunday. I'm talking to my homegirl, Soph. I'm like, hey, like, Soph, like, by the way, what do you do?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'm in my senior year at NYU. I'm an actor. I go, you want to be in a short? She acts in the short. Short comes out. It's beautiful. And I'm
amazing.
Like, but that type of shit exists here.
Yeah.
And I get so much joy and so much life out of being able to do things like that, out of being able to connect people that wouldn't have otherwise been connected.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why opening Priv'y here needed to happen.
Yeah.
It was like when I got to move into, the Cat Cafe downstairs, it was one of those things where I was like, it's endless fucking possibilities of what can be done here.
Yeah.
And I guess I was dabbling on like, what did I really want to put in a space, right? Like, was it going to be an office? Was it going to be a studio? Was it going to be a live music, venue? What was I going to do? I knew I needed a third space. Like I felt it like bubbling inside of me. And a gallery felt the most easily malleable, where I could kind of do anything I want.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Right? Like you say, you got a gallery or an exhibition space. It's like, I can do live music there. I can do a poetry reading. I can do a live talk between 2 artists. I can put art on the walls. But with that, I didn't want to run a traditional gallery space. I have zero background in art history, and I'll be the first to say I have zero background in art history. But I do know what I like, and I do know what my community gravitates towards, and I think there's something of value there. And so when I finally was able to secure the gallery space, it was kind of like, okay, let's set up some shows. Let's set up some activations. Let's decide what we can do for this space to make this physical manifestation for my community really serve the community.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's as simple as like inviting my friends into co-work, or inviting my editor homies in who got a big project. You want to work on something that's not your apartment? Okay, bring your laptop over.
Yeah.
We're hosting a show for Tommy Rizzoli tomorrow, who's like a good buddy of mine.
Okay.
And he told me about this idea he had for a photo show a year ago called AM/PM.
Okay.
Talking about his really close-knit group of friends in New York and the juxtaposition of what they're like in the daytime versus what they're like in the nighttime.
Oh, okay.
And his images are shot over 5 years, and they really do tell that story. And I remember him telling me that, and I was like...
And that's being shown in your space.
Yeah, and I remember him telling me that a year ago, and I was like, I'm going to do that show. I didn't think I was going to have a gallery in a year or whatever, but I was like, one day I'll publish that book or I'll do that show.
And now you're going to deliver.
And now I'm doing the show.
That's so awesome.
Tomorrow. And then, and we're publishing his book, later this year, but it's like, those are just things that's like, call it manifestation, call it faith in God, call it whatever you really want to. But what I know to be true is that my connection to people is something that will carry me wherever I'm going to go. So having a physical space where I can connect with people and other people can connect with each other.
Yeah.
I think that that's where I'm starting to realize like that's where I can provide the most value.
Definitely.
And so moving into a neighborhood like Dimes, I didn't want to be a concept store. I didn't want to be another place selling clothes. I mean, I love everywhere that sells clothes here. I didn't want to be another cafe. I wanted
another cat cafe.
I did.
You should get a cat.
I'm a dog guy, maybe more so. But I didn't want to be another concept space in Dimes Square.
Yeah.
I wanted to fucking have a place where people could come in and do shit.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think that once you have a physical space in New York, there's really no excuse to not like do things.
Yeah.
And
now you have to.
Now I'm doing things, and I'm a first timer and I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. And it's like stressful, but it's also amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great.
Ignorant and blissful about just like this idea that like
it's
going to be.
I was so stoked because the first time I saw you in there and you guys were doing portraits of a book that you just showed me that like is going to come out. But I was so excited to have you. I mean, the Cat Cafe was kind of iconic.
Totally iconic.
You had me at Meow.
It's still around the corner. It's still around the corner. I didn't steal it from him.
Well, that's really awesome. So, okay, what I find interesting on your Instagram, it says that you are a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
So what does like religion mean for you?
Yeah, I guess like in less of a general sense of like religion, it's like my faith base is like the thing that really carries me to all that I do. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not a perfect person, like the farthest from it. And it's actually like my faith that allows me to like boast in that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think.
In which way?
In the ability to like admit that I'm not perfect and I'm not even trying to be, right? Like knowing that somebody else has my best interest at heart, speaking to God, like I'm going to make my mistakes. I'm going to fall flat on my face and I'm going to get back up and I'm going to try to do better tomorrow. But this like underlying stirring in my heart that's like, that's God is like, no, I gave you these gifts. Use them. Every single day. That's on my heart, right? It's like, I gave you the ability to connect with people. Use that. Use it well, right? Because you could use it in a negative way also.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about moving to New York, because I had a great church in Minneapolis. I was plugged in. I had an incredible faith base and group of friends around me who were always going to church. And I moved to New York, and it was something I was a little nervous about. It was like, how am I going to like continue to nurture my faith in New York? And, I met some really incredible people who brought me to Church of the City, where I go to in Gramercy. And being able to be in a city like New York and to watch God move, like getting this space does not happen without him.
No.
Yes, I worked really hard. Yes, I did all of the things, but like only through him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that like...
That's also easy because you give a bit of the responsibility. I always feel like, you have your own cards in your hand and it's your responsibility to play them well. But it was actually a friend of mine who was like, you also just need to trust in something. And that really was a big like eye opener for me.
Well, right. Because don't you feel like, at the end of the day, it's like leaving it all on yourself is a bit heavy.
Yeah, it's a heavy life.
The thing is like you don't have to carry that.
No.
And so when I talk to friends who are like, why are you so just like so ambitious and you feel like you can do anything and you feel like you can go after anything, because I kind of can.
Yeah.
Not in like a boastful way, just in the sense that like God's got me, and like if I'm shooting really hard for whatever that thing that I really am drawn towards, wherever I'm actually meant to be, he's going to take me there.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? Like when I started the community of creators, that might have looked like something else.
Yeah.
But what he was really doing was building this foundation for what Priv'y is today.
Wow.
And I think that having a faith base, having something to look up to, something to believe in, it just makes life like so much less stressful, so much less anxiety ridden. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, God's got me.
Yeah.
So I'm all good.
Yeah. And isn't it funny that actually all religions have kind of the same base of a love and a belief in a God,
100%.
But they just have different ways of looking at it. I love that in the life of Pi.
Yeah.
When Pi, the main character, is practicing 3 religions, he has no problem with that because he doesn't see the contradiction between them.
Right.
But then when the 3 leaders meet each other and they didn't know, they're like, they start arguing, but he's like, but isn't it all the principle of loving a God the same. I find that so inspiring.
Well, I think it all comes down in general to love also. Like being such a faithful person, I'm really able to like show up in rooms with a lot of love.
Yeah.
For the people that I meet, that I want to get a job for, that I want to collaborate with. And I think that like there's a lot of people who don't really believe in love or don't believe in faith in that way, and it makes them pessimistic. It makes them sour, and it's like I don't want to live that way.
No.
I want to live like full of joy.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing too, is like, yeah, I'm young and I'm hungry and I want things, of course. But it's like, I don't want things for selfish, like, because then I can sit on top of my big house of money.
Are you afraid that New York may make you that way?
People ask me that a lot.
And now it's on tape. I'm going to have you back. I mean, in the meantime, maybe, but definitely like in 7 years. And
I would
then we'll
love
watch
that.
it back. Yeah.
I don't think that New York will make me jaded.
And if it happens, I'll remind you.
Yeah.
That's what good neighbors are for.
And I have those checkers. Like to check me.
Checks and balances.
Like I have some really incredible people in my life.
Amazing.
That like when I'm being an asshole or when I'm not doing, what I'm supposed to be doing, I have some people that are like,
dude,
are you sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? I look to that, and I also realize like New York has so much trauma. So much has happened. So much, just sad things happening in front of our faces all the time.
Yeah.
Man.
It's really tough.
But man, if you just turn a little bit too, it's got a lot of really beautiful things
at
the same time.
Yeah.
You can't take the good without the bad, but you can't take the bad without the good either.
Yeah. No, but that's why I love it here. It is because you can go very high, but you could also go very low.
Right.
In Holland, you'll always kind of be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the
too.
waves, man.
I know.
I mean, it really feels like I'm sucking everything out of life.
Yeah.
And like, it's not something that I even like say like lightly, but like, when I first moved to New York, I was in that sublet in Hell's Kitchen, and then I had to leave a little early just because my subletter came back. It was this thing that miscommunication. But I ended up spending like 22 days without a home, and I'm not even saying that in any type of.
Where did you live?
I stayed on 5 different people's couches. I stayed in a 24-hour diner. 2 nights, TikTok diner, 34th and 8th.
No way.
Yep.
Were you able to sleep there?
I pulled all-nighters.
Oh my God.
And then I went to work in the garment district a few blocks away.
Wow. Iconic beginning story.
But the thing is like, again, I was so stoked to be in New York. And what I started to realize is like how kind people were.
Yeah.
Because the place I ended up moving into was this travel photographer who just knew me off of TikTok. I was like, come live at my apartment. I get to live in her beautiful apartment in Tudor City, Midtown East Tudor City. 13th floor, doorman building, beautiful terrace, whatever, for like $1,500.
Wow. Amazing.
She just was like, I'm going out of town. My cat needs somebody to feed them.
See, there you have the cat red
Right.
line. Yeah.
But she's like, somebody needs to feed my... And I just started realizing, like, you're going to let me stay in your house for like way less money than you should be letting somebody stay in your house for.
Yeah.
And like all these people who were letting me sleep in the house, I've been in New York for like a month. I didn't really know anybody. So these people like opening and welcoming me into their homes was like, these are like passive friends I met like yesterday.
But people do like to help each other out.
I know, but you don't hear that as much.
No.
What you hear is like, go the fuck home, go back to Minnesota or whatever it is, right? It's like
I find that really interesting because that has come back a few times. I didn't even see that because I always love new people and new ideas and new thoughts and new groups.
Which is great.
But like, that's the last thing I would do because otherwise it gets still. You need the new blood.
You need it. And like, I love like watching my friends from other places who are creative or whatever come to New York and they're like, oh, I don't have anywhere to stay. I'm like, you're going to sleep in my bed.
Yeah.
You're going to stay at my apartment and you're going to sleep there. I'll sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, I want people to see New York through the proper lens. And it doesn't mean it's like glamorous. I'm not going to like take you to the nicest restaurants and do the nicest things. I'm going to like show you what it's like to like hustle and go and do
the real thing.
The real thing. But like the more thing that I realize is that like people are like, damn, that's addicting. I want that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like the things I learned, like being here early and fresh and like having people be kind to me is like exactly what I'm trying to reciprocate when people come stay with me now. Or when people come to New York and they're like, is it for me? And I think, to talk about like our communities in the place, and it's funny that you say we have a little bit of overlap and like you moved in and you're like, wait, who are all these new people and what's going on? It's like you're only one person away from everybody else in New York.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, you're about
everybody's
handshake. Got one mutual, right? So it's like what I started to realize is like if I can provide value to a lot of different people, the connection pool doubles, triples, quadruples.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a funny little analogy, but like my first birthday in New York, I invited 10 people to a dinner and made a reservation, did the whole thing. 2 people showed up total.
Yeah.
2 out of the 10.
I have a story about this
right?
too. Yeah.
But the thing was, is like those 2-person group, I mean, those were my homies.
Yeah.
And they came through and that was so sweet. And like what our relationship has turned into now is like immaculate, amazing. But 2 people showed up out of a 10-person dinner. And then I just had my 25th birthday last week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, mate.
Wow.
Thank you. And
if I'd known, I'd had cupcakes, but
but they're like close to 300 people at my birthday party.
Damn, you're popular.
I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not a cool kid. I mean,
And now it would be 301 because I would probably come.
I don't know why you didn't come.
I was busy.
Yeah. But it's like, but I don't even think I'm like a cool kid to come to a party because it's a cool party. I knew all of those people.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
Like those are people I've shared coffee with. Those are people I've shared drinks with. Those are people I've gotten breakfast with.
Yeah.
Right. And like that is a testament to the community I'm trying to build with Priv'y. Is like these aren't just people I want to show up to my parties.
Yeah.
These are people I want to have real relationships with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Wow. Major. I must say in the pandemic, a lot of things changed in the street.
Sure.
So you had Carmine at the coffee shop where now Bodhi is. Stanley, of course, who had the pharmacy, who passed away 2 years ago. Joy's flower pot. They all left. And there was so much history in that. You know, we used to always talk about that. But now there's a whole new crowd that's equally cool. So one of the things I like about, you know, doing this podcast is it is a stamp of all the people like around. We're talking about things now that we find normal, but maybe in 10 years we won't have anymore.
I guess for me, it's like joining like the club of being on Hester Street or being in Dime Square, and is for me this idea to kind of like contribute something special. You know what I mean? Like I really think that like what we're going to do in the space is going to be something that like will have lasting impacts. Like I think it will be something that kids from the Midwest will look to and be like, I got to get to New York and I got to go buy Priv'y. I got to go see what that's about.
Yeah.
And then they're going to run over across the street to Caxetta and get a coffee. And then they're going to, you know what I mean? Like I want to,
because I went to the opening party.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this space has a bright future.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I just think that like, I want to be a part of history. And it doesn't need to be like cool or remembered or anything, but like, I want to have my history in my, also as an extension of Priv'y, but like New York is built on its iconic eras and its generations and the artists and the people who have come before us, right? Like we look back on like Max's Kansas City. We look back on Studio 54. We look back on all of these beautiful and wonderful things, right? In the moment, those people didn't really know what they had.
No.
In the same way that we don't really know what we have.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to be able to like do this podcast in 10 years, maybe in Hester Street or wherever else, and know that like we got
Probably
to
still on Hester Street.
Hey,
it's so good. Yeah.
But like and be able to share in the fact that like we got to build something together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like it's not even just artist specific. It's just like it's real like family type shit. You know what I mean? It's like real familial community.
Familia. Yeah. No, but it was funny you talked about like faith and things happen for a reason, because I did say that to you at some point when I came in, and I was like, definitely you came in here for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, we should collaborate on something. I'm excited for that.
Thank you.
What would that look like?
I mean, I think that the most like obvious one would be something motion.
Something
related.
motion, doc about the neighborhood.
I think that'd be epic.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It's kind of amazing.
I would love that.
Let's do it, dude. It's such a nice way to get to know you.
Yeah.
You're super entrepreneurial And I know you're going to be a huge asset to the street. I mean, already, like, because we have Frank Leisure Center, of course, and you were sitting outside with all the amazing creative people. And yeah, I'm very excited for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Dude, thank you for having me. This has been such a pleasure. I love intentional conversation.
Yes.
So
I know. I had this with my mom. I did it. It wasn't for the series, but she's like, you should always bring your podcast set up because we've never had a convo like this.
So good.
Yeah.
Intentional conversation. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Great.
Hell yeah.